Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Santosh Christudas. I'm coming to you from the Toronto Business Journal. And today we have a book marketing expert, John Kremer. He's the author of 1001 Ways to Market Your Books, a great mentor to authors who have sold over 1 billion books, and a founder of the Billion Books Initiative to help the next generation of books authors sell another 1 billion books. And for the over 34 years, he's helped thousands of authors, both major celebrities and those just starting out, sell more books and lots more books. So, John Kremer, thank you so much for joining us today at the Toronto Business Journal. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, wow, right off the bat, over 1 billion books, and you want to sell even more. So I'm very impressed by that, especially during this age where you would think that, with so much distraction, people are not buying as many books. But I'm glad that you're still selling so many.
Well, books are still selling. People actually enjoy reading. And certainly with the pandemic that's been going on, people are at home a lot. And books are still a choice. It was hard for the bookstores because bookstores weren't considered essential. I consider them essential, but a lot, the governments didn't always think that way. But bookstore sellers found ways to, continue to sell books, have people pick them up, things like that. I have a favorite local bookstore owner, and he's wonderful. I still drop in to see it, to talk to him once in a while, wearing a mask, but other than that, fine.
I'm glad it's still open. That's good. At least you can visit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know, of course, nowadays people can buy books online everywhere as well, right? So definitely that's going to add to your sales as well, don't you think?
Right. And certainly places like Amazon have done very well during the pandemic,
of course,
including in terms of selling books.
Yes, definitely. And of course, there's, these days there's two types of books. There's the e-books and there's the printed books as well. So,
and there's also audio books.
Yes, of course.
Because that's my wife's favorite way to consume books is audiobooks. So
I understand, because the audiobooks, you can kind of listen to it while you're doing other work as well.
Right.
So it's a great time saver. So of all the three types, ebooks, printed books, and audiobooks, which one do you think is selling the most?
Print books, I think, are still selling the most.
Mm-hmm.
I think people still like the feel of a book in their hands. It's easy, it's portable. I mean, obviously an iPad or portable computers, a cell phone. A lot of people read books that way. But I don't know. There are a lot of people that I think still like turning the pages. And the book industry numbers still indicate that the print books sell more than the ebooks.
I understand myself, because if I'm a big comic book guy, so if I'm buying a comic book, right, I would love to actually have it in my hand and flip through the pages. There's something very sentimental about that,
right?
Compared to the just having it on an ebook on my device, and it's just somewhere and not.
But it's not just old people that care about the feel of the print book. Young people are still reading print books as well. There's a feeling, it's good. Certainly children are still being growing up reading, having their parents read picture books to them and things like that. And that's still really, to me, that's a great feeling to be able to read to your child or something like that. So I don't think books are going to go away. It's sort of like, radio hasn't gone away, even with TV being around for 70 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I don't think books will go away. I do like the flexibility of ebooks. They're certainly easier to produce. They're cheaper to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly for somebody who's starting out, it's a great way to start out in terms of publishing, self-publishing a book, because there's, when I started out, it would cost you $10,000-$20,000 to print a book, and
Wow.
even then, it was 1,000 copies or something like
Wow.
that.
Hmm.
Nowadays, you can start up with print and ebooks
Yeah.
for $50.
Yeah. Wow. Then also we now have like more print on demand, right? That's more
Right. And that's
before.
why,
Yeah. It's yeah.
and that makes a difference. And I think that's going to be around for a long time, to print on demand. But I
Yeah.
still like the feel and the quality of a real printed book. Print on demand is really close in terms of quality,
Yeah.
but the ink is different.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, can you elaborate on that? The ink is different in a print on demand.
Well, print on demand is essentially done through a copier machine,
Oh,
very sophisticated copy machine that
okay.
often includes the binding and all that in the run.
Hmm.
But the print books are done on big print machines and then bound separately.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit different process,
Wow.
but I think print on demand is a magical thing for
Yeah.
certainly authors, because now the cost of entry is very, very low.
Exactly.
That,
Yeah.
that of course means that you end up with a lot of bad books,
Hmm. More
or
competition.
or not as good books,
Yeah.
because anybody can do it, and it's a very low cost of entry. So that means that people will do it that should have spent a little bit more money on an editor or something like that.
Hmm.
But you know consumers know how to sort through that and pick out
Yeah.
what's going to be good for
Exactly.
them and useful for them.
Yeah. Frankly, I think it's better this way because there's not a monopoly as it used to be, I guess. The big publishers would only, publish a book if the author is already doing well, usually. Whereas
Right.
now it's giving a more hope to like an aspiring writer who's just starting out and wants to get a feel for the industry. And I
Well,
think, yeah,
yeah, and the
yeah,
interesting thing is, many of them have done, there are a lot of authors out there who have done very well with print on demand, selling, up to 1 million copies.
wow.
So it's not that they can't do it. It's, you know, and the people that do it obviously do it because of word of mouth.
Hmm.
So they've written a good book.
Yeah,
You don't get word of mouth if you didn't write a good book.
yeah,
You'll get the unsuspecting readers who buy the book and haven't heard about it, and
yeah,
once they buy it, they realize, oh wow, this isn't so good a book.
yeah,
But that doesn't matter, because it's a low cost explore and find new authors, because generally speaking, you're going to buy the ebook first from a new author, and that'll be anywhere from $1 to $10
yeah.
depending on the author.
Yeah. So it gives like, I mean, yeah, that way the buyer is a bit safe as well. Like they can get like a little sample of it. And if they
Right.
like it, they can get more. And of course, I know some people offer free samples of their ebooks just to like get the word around. And then if you want more, you can buy the actual printed version.
Right. And
Yeah.
that works for both fiction and
Oh,
nonfiction. Um,
interesting.
in fact, I often tell most fiction writers have more than one book in them. So
Hmm.
I often tell them, give away the first book, build an
Mm,
audience,
it's very smart.
um, because it makes sense, because you're building an audience, you're building a fan base.
Yeah.
You give it away, but you capture the person's email so you can communicate with them and let
Ah,
them know about your future books. And that works pretty well for many authors. But the one thing, when you used to have to pay to print books, I always told authors, don't give away books, not even to your mother or father. Make them buy the book, you
uh,
know, because then they would value it.
yes.
But in
That's true.
today's world, it really makes sense with ebooks to give them away to build an audience if you have more than one book inside you.
Yeah. And if they like the ebook, obviously they're going to go for the printed version as well. So
Right, right.
so that's a very good tactic that you've, and of course, as you said, you collect the information. I mean, like a name or the email address, so that in the future you can still like market them, like send emails and say, hey,
Right.
did you like the book? Can you leave a review? And then of course the more reviews you get, I guess that adds like you get more chances of people buying your book.
Right.
Yeah.
The more reviews you have on Amazon, for example, the more often your book will show up in front
Yes,
of
true.
people that might want to buy it. If you
Interesting.
don't get the reviews, Amazon's not going to promote you.
That's a very good tip. So, and of course, like bookstores, are they like accepting like on-demand prints, or do they expect the actual manufactured, like the old school way of printing a book?
No, they sell a ton of print-on-demand
Oh, they
books.
do. Okay,
One
they're
of the
okay with that.
major print-on-demand books
Hmm.
providers, Ingram Spark,
Okay.
here in the U.S., and I believe they have a Canadian office as well,
Hmm.
is based or owned by Ingram Book Wholesalers, which is the major book wholesaler in the U.S.
Oh,
and probably Canada as well, but I'm not sure.
right. Yeah, probably. I mean, U.S. and Canada market are kind of go hand in hand sometimes. Wouldn't you say so?
In many cases, but there are
Yeah.
some great book distributors in Canada as well.
Right.
Raincoast book distributors out on the West Coast and so on, who are very good about it. And you know, a lot of American books are actually printed in Canada because it's a little bit cheaper there.
Oh, so it's cheaper in Canada. That's a good thing to know. That's interesting. And that's good to
And
know. Yeah.
Canadian printers do wonderful
Oh,
work. So it's not like you're just buying it because it's cheap. You're going to get good quality as well.
that's very good to hear. I'm glad that we can help each other out, the Canada and the US market. That's really good to hear. So
Well,
I
it's really interesting because
yeah.
I once flew to Canada to Toronto to speak,
Okay.
and I forgot. I wasn't realizing I was going to a foreign country. I didn't bring my passport. Uh, they
Wow.
let me in. They let me
Yeah.
in, and it was actually tougher getting out.
That's very interesting. We're very friendly here in Canada, I think.
So it worked out, but it was one of those things that I just went blank on the idea that I was going somewhere that was foreign.
Wow. That's good. We're like neighbors. I like that.
Yes,
Friendly neighbors. That's
yes.
I'm glad you shared that experience with us. And so yeah, speaking of book distributors, now you mentioned that you've helped thousands of authors, both major celebrities and just starting out. Could you name a few major celebrities you've helped out, and also, of course, any unknown authors that have become like big successes, like went on to sell millions of copies, for example?
Well, obviously, if you looked at my book at all,
Mhm.
on the top of it, it says Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen with
Oh,
the
okay.
Chicken Soup for the Soul books. The,
Oh, right.
the Jack Canfield did a nice video testimony for me about that. They actually took my book apart, essentially, wrote down all the things they wanted to do from it, and put it up on their wall as
Wow.
with sticky notes. And
Nice.
as they did the things, they took the note off and went on. But they really attribute a lot of their success to following my advice in my book.
Wow. That must be a really big honor for you. Like they must be very grateful to have you as one of their mentors.
They
That's
sent
great.
me a ton of customers to
Oh,
buy my
wow.
book
That's
because
great.
whenever anybody asked them, well, what should I do to market my book? They said, don't talk to us. Just go and read John's book. So
Wow. I'm gonna pick up a copy myself because I'm very interested too. So definitely, and of course, if any viewers are here, they can pick up a copy as well. And once this interview is finished. So also like selling, like, so for example, you said you helped major celebrities, right? So sometimes they have like
right.
a brand name already well established, so it must be a little bit easier, you'd imagine, to sell their books than when compared to like a relatively unknown author.
Right.
Yeah.
If the author already has what we call in the industry a platform,
Yeah.
then they're going to be likely to be much more successful because they will have people that want their material. You
Yeah.
know, if you're just starting out and you're unknown,
Yeah.
nobody knows you, nobody cares about you. Why are they going to buy your book? So you have to, you know, connect with people that already have a platform.
Right.
So, you know, there was an interesting case. Okay, I'm going blank on his name right now, but the 4 hour, Tim, going blank on his name,
Okay.
4 hour work week.
Okay.
Uh, he, the year before he started, he actually published his book. He went to internet marketing conferences around the country, and I'm sure he hit Canada a number of times. And
Hmm.
he went to the internet marketers and he said, because they're the ideal audience for his book,
Hmm.
because internet marketers don't like to work. So a 4 hour work week sounds great, you
Yeah.
know, and many of them actually implemented that. But the thing is, he went there to the conferences, he met with them, and the first question he asked was, "What can I do to help you?"
Hmm.
Which is really, you know, the best way to build a relationship is to start by asking that question, how
Hmm.
can I help you? And then, you know, so he took them out to dinner, he took them out for drinks, he got to know them. So when he was ready to launch his book, he had 100 top internet marketers ready to interview him, ready to promote his book. And so he didn't even need the major TV shows or major newspapers to pay attention, because he had such an incredible platform built up by the internet marketers who had thousands and sometimes millions of fans.
Wow, that just shows to you the power of the internet now. It's even more powerful in some ways than mainstream media. I mean, of course, mainstream media has its like glamour, but internet marketers do just as good a job, or like even sometimes reach more people. Wouldn't you agree these
I
days?
would. I
Okay.
would say that certainly when you're looking at the political spectrum, you know, the liberal side, you know, basically owns mainstream media
Yeah.
in the U.S.
Yeah.
So if you're a conservative author, you really have to work with a lot of the people who have internet websites and,
Yes.
you know, a platform there. And there have been an incredible number of bestsellers from both sides of the political spectrum using different techniques.
Ah, that's
And
fascinating.
so, you know, you have to be aware of where does your audience get their information? Where do they get uh, where do they get inspired to buy things? And then you go to that platform. You try to build relationships.
Hmm.
Um, 80% of all books are sold by word of mouth. That means that somebody picked up your book, discovered it somehow, and then they tell their friends about it.
Hmm.
And you know, when I used to live in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I worked in the downtown area,
Hmm.
and every secretary had the same book. They were all reading the same book because they talked to each other, and they
Exactly.
wanted to sit at lunch and talk about the books they were reading. So everybody had the same book, and I think that's probably still happening. Probably not during the COVID as much,
Hmm.
but certainly it's something that's real. The idea that people influence other people's purchase decisions in terms of buying books.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. Like if you see somebody else reading a book, or it's not just books for any brand, right? The reason why Pepsi's or Coca-Cola is so popular is because they're not, it's not like they're the best pop drinks out there. It's because you see people, you know, in the adverts, or just see your friends ordering one, and then, oh, you kind of want to like bond with them, right?
Right,
So it's a
right.
bonding experience, and that book's the same thing. So like how would you encourage authors to get their books talked about more? Like, what are your tips?
Well, the key tip, I think, well, there's two in today's world. One is to get out there and speak wherever you can.
Hmm,
Now,
that's
you know, the
smart.
past year, that's harder to do,
Yeah.
but you can do it online. Watch
Yes,
this
I agree.
interview here.
Yeah.
Essentially, you know, if somebody hears you talk about your book. Now, the key thing is you have to give real concrete information. You
Right.
can't just keep saying, well, it's in the book. It's in the book.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to buy the book because you haven't proved it. You
Yeah,
haven't given them a reason to.
I
So
agree.
you have to really give practical, useful information. And then people will say, wow, I really liked what he said. I'm going to go buy his book. The other
Yes.
thing that when somebody hears you speak, whether it's online or offline, they're going to be a stronger advocate for your book once they buy it and read it, because
Mm.
they feel like they've built a little bit of a relationship with you
Ah,
because they've heard you, they see you, they feel like, okay, I want to support him.
yes. That's a very good tactic. So just join right now. Of course, as you said, there's not as many outdoor meetings, but like on Zoom, find those meetings that are like, I would also say like maybe find meetings that are kind of related to your books, because you don't want to be like selling fictional work in a meeting that's more like has nonfiction type readers, like, wouldn't you agree? Like find that
Right.
niche market.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you're trying to find the people that already have the audience you want to reach.
Ah,
So
okay.
you're going to work with people who are blogging,
Right.
people who are podcasting, people who are video casting, and you're going to find people with an audience already who loves talking about your area of interest, what you wrote about.
Okay.
So there are a ton of bloggers out there that write about the novels that they're reading or the children's books that they're reading. I
Hmm.
just did a video on how to sell children's books online. And part of the thing I was talking about was videos and the kind of videos that you could make or have other people make that would
Hmm.
help to sell your children's book. The same principles, of course, apply to almost any kind of fiction and
Yeah.
even nonfiction. You still want some of the same kinds of things to happen to make the same kinds of videos, to share them on things like YouTube and Pinterest and Instagram and Facebook.
Yes. Yes. Definitely, social media is a huge part of the increasing your audience and things like that.
Right.
And so, speaking of topics, do you think any particular topic usually does better than other topics, or what are your thoughts on that? Or is it all on the book itself, usually?
Not necessarily just on the book itself. I mean,
Mm.
obviously, almost any topic will sell because they it they have a core audience that's probably 100,000 to a million strong.
Right.
Even if you're doing something like cross stitching Halloween costumes, I don't
Yeah.
know if you can do that. I
Uh-huh.
don't know enough about cross stitching,
Yeah.
but almost any audience that you could possibly think of will have um, platforms out there, in bloggers, websites, podcasts, and so on. I mean, there are podcasts now. I think, what is it? There's 2 million podcasts out there now.
Wow.
It's a lot,
You know.
So and it's still, to me, it's in some ways very amazing that's still happening. Though a lot of podcasts now are going video. They're
Yeah.
using Zoom and things, other platforms like that to go video, but there's still a strong audio component because even in today's world, you're still spending some time in your car. And
Yes.
so you'll listen to the podcast while you're driving.
Yes. I imagine most podcasts, like, I mean, the video is there to just let the viewer see who they are. I like build a relationship, but at the same time, most of the time they just listen to it rather than actually watch the whole video, and that's
Right.
fine, right? People.
Well,
Yeah.
how interesting are the two of us on this video?
Exactly.
They can listen to us and,
Yeah.
get most of the value.
Exactly.
Um, unless we were sharing a screen and showing something,
Yeah.
they don't have to pay attention to us, even though we're beautiful.
Of course. Of
Now,
course.
going back to the one question, probably the
Yeah.
most popular category is
Right.
romance novels.
Romance. Okay. That's good.
Probably 70-80% of the people who buy books are women.
Oh, that's
Uh,
interesting.
they're much more readers than men are
Yeah.
generally speaking. Now, there are exceptions to that. Obviously, a business book is
Yeah.
probably more 50-50 or even leaning more towards men.
Hmm.
Sports book, it's probably going to lean more towards men if
Yeah.
it's targeted to men. Hunting, fishing, probably men.
Yeah.
Cars, things like that. But with among fiction, 50% of fiction is definitely romance
Oh, okay.
novels. And so if you were going to start out, that's one of the best places to start out as
Interesting.
a fiction writer, because there's an audience there and they're
Right.
hungry for more and more.
Right, right. It's similar to the movie industry. Sometimes I think one of the movies that come out the most are kind of like romantic comedies. And if you write a script based on that, you tend to like sell your script more easier than if you write something like I don't know, Lord of the Rings or something that's an epic, right? Like, because it takes more time to write such a kind of fiction. So speaking on that,
Well, it's a lot less expensive
yeah,
also to film
yeah, of course,
a
yes,
romance than because you can have one room or a couple of rooms and outside shots and
yeah,
make it work. Whereas Lord of the Rings, you've got
yeah, a lot of
incredible
work.
costs in
I
making it
know.
happen.
Maybe work their way up there. So maybe I think Peter Jackson's, for example, his first movie wasn't Lord of the Rings, obviously, right? It was like
No,
something
no,
lower budget. So
yeah,
similar to that, maybe book authors can start with something simple, even if they're not the most passionate about it. They at least they get a feel for the audience, and they also, I find when you first get more successful, you build your confidence as well. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, and I actually recommend that if you're going to write a book,
yeah.
read some books.
I
You need to
agree.
know exactly what people are concerned about in your field.
Yeah.
And so you need to read some of the books, find out how they talk about it, and
Hmm.
then decide how you're going to be different.
Right.
And that's part of what you do. There were a couple other books out about book marketing before I wrote mine,
Hmm.
but mine was, I knew them, I had read them, so I knew
Ah.
exactly how I could be different. And but I actually modeled the look and feel of my book on the basis of a couple books by a man named Nat Bodian.
Okay.
And he wrote some great books on book marketing.
Okay.
And but they were, you know, he was writing mainly for the trade book, the big publishers and the university presses.
Hmm.
So his whole stories and all that were based on more the academic side. So when I wrote my book, I wrote mainly about consumer books and
Hmm.
how to market them. And so I talked a lot more about the publicity angle than he did,
Ah.
because with trade publishing, a lot of that can be done by direct mail.
Oh, I see. So
Back in the day,
yeah, it's all
nowadays
changed. Yeah.
it's internet marketing and you're
Yeah.
doing it through email lists and things like that,
Right.
rather than direct mail, which is, I remember when I first started out, the same thing in terms of cost. If you're doing direct mail, the minimum cost is going to be somewhere around $10,000, and that's to
Wow.
reach 10,000 people at most.
Wow.
And so it's expensive, but you can target an audience. And I did that multiple times using industry lists, to reach people that might be interested in printing a book or marketing a book, which were my first two books. One was a directory of book printers,
Okay.
because there wasn't really anything out there like that that
Hmm.
that spoke to the entrepreneurial author who wanted to publish their own book. And at the time, print on demand wasn't available, so you
Hmm.
had to do it through a good printer. And so I created that directory. Once I sold that, then the first question everybody asked me was, well, I got all these books in my garage. What do I do?
Hmm.
And I said, well, I know at least 101 ways to market your books. So my book started off as 101 ways, and then people said I lied, so I called it 1,001 ways to
Wow.
market your books.
Wow. That was a good lie in a way. Like you're being too modest. There's actually so many
Yeah,
more ways.
Yeah, and I haven't counted them, so I don't know how many are there,
But
But I
yeah,
feel confident that there were at least 1,001 ways, so
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
I didn't bother to count them.
Yeah, I mean, 1001, that's another thing. The title sounds really good, right? 1001 ways. So
Yes.
people are more bound to, even if it's not 100% accurate, people are more bound to pick up the book. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend that who wrote a book called 1,001 Ways to Be Romantic.
No.
And he sold millions of books without ever being on a bestseller list.
Oh, I find that interesting. How is that possible? He sold that many, but he's not on a bestseller list.
Because he wasn't selling them necessarily in the bookstores that the New York Times surveys.
Oh,
He was
okay.
going, his audience was mainly middle America, which isn't really counted in best-selling lists.
Oh, that's unfortunate, don't you think?
It is, but New York Times wants to reflect the New York Times culture, what
Hmm.
they're about. So they survey the big cities on the two coasts and a few bookstores in the middle.
Hmm.
But they wait. They actually, it's not like the bestseller list is an actual accurate count of what's selling.
Ah,
It's what's selling in particular bookstores,
I see.
and that's okay. If you know that, you can actually target a campaign. I actually helped Deepak Chopra with
Oh, wow.
his first book that came from a major publisher. I helped him do the strategy to get onto the bestseller list by
Wow.
targeting specific bookstores.
Interesting. Well, I'm a big fan of Deepak Chopra, so I'm
Yeah.
very honored that I'm talking with the man who got him started. That's great. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if he even knows it because I didn't work with him directly. I
Oh,
worked with the people that were helping him out,
ah,
but I
okay.
gave them the strategy of what to do to help his book become visible.
Wow.
And it worked. And then one of my good friends published one of his books. She was a small publisher,
Hmm.
The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success.
Wow.
And she built her company on the basis of that. And then she went on to publish Don Miguel.
Hmm.
I think that's, I forget his, I don't know if there's more to that name or not, but
Hmm.
uh, she helped, she published him and she went on to, nurture a number of best-selling books.
Wow.
And I love helping people, and that's why, I'm in the business. It's probably why you're doing what you're doing. You love
Yes.
helping people.
Yes. Well, congratulations on all your success as well. And I like the way you put it. You're more into helping people than just making money or making sales. Because if you help people, the sales automatically start coming in, right? Rather than
Right.
just focusing. Yeah.
And the word of mouth really
Yes.
matters. If
Yeah.
you're just going money, 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 money,
People know. Yeah.
it doesn't work as well. You really
Exactly.
have to be in the idea that you want to help people. And that
Yeah.
really makes a difference because if you in the mode of helping people, then when you do interviews or things like that,
Yeah.
you're not going to be going, buy my book, buy my book. You're going
Yeah.
to be giving people concrete information they can use. And
Yeah.
that alone will probably inspire them to buy your book without you
Yeah.
even having to say that.
Wow. Like you seem like a very genuine person, and really, just from talking with you, I feel like I want to pick up your book. So you have that, you have that quality, and that's something like maybe you get it naturally, but some people can definitely work on it. I guess, like if they're not the most outgoing person,
Well,
yeah,
you know, when I first started out, if I ever spoke, my stomach was churning.
oh,
I was a wreck before getting up on a stage or something like that. But as I did it, I got to love it. And so
hmm.
there, people would introduce me on stage and they would take too long and I'd have to push them off the stage so I could get going.
Wow,
I wanted to speak. And, so, once you start doing it, and you start having fun with it, it becomes a whole different story. And my main job when I work with a lot of authors is to get them over that hump
Right.
to get them to start doing some things, to get some interviews under their belt, no matter how big or small the audience, so that they can, get comfortable doing,
Right.
podcast interviews or interviewing with a magazine or doing a TV interview or whatever it might be.
Right. That's a
But because you'll fall in love with it,
yeah. Eventually, you learn to pick yourself up, like motivate yourself up, right? Like you don't need that
Yes,
push anymore.
and
Okay.
you have the fun of doing it. And
Yeah.
so, I spoke once, I did a speech once at the National Speakers Association
Mm-hmm.
here in the US, and there were about 300 people in the audience, and I was sicker than a dog.
Wow.
I was not feeling well, but once I got up on the stage, I spoke for an hour and a half, I think it was,
Wow.
and then collapsed afterwards.
As
but
long as it's
but
off stage.
yeah, but during
Yeah.
the time I was on
Yeah.
stage, nobody would have known I was sick,
Oh.
because I was just sharing and telling stories and doing all the things that you do in marketing a book. In fact, one of the best ways to, if you're speaking or doing an interview like this,
Yeah.
is to tell stories,
Yes. People
and and,
relate.
and
Yeah.
that really makes a difference. If you can really tell a story of what somebody did, like Jack and Mark putting sticky notes up on their wall,
Right.
and then following them and doing them, it makes a difference. I
Mm-hmm.
tell authors you should spend at least, you should do at least 3 things a day
Mm-hmm.
for your book if you still love it.
Oh.
Pick up the phone and call somebody else, do an interview, connect with somebody online. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I would not recommend is, do 5 social media posts and expect that that's going to be the magic. You
Yeah.
really have to create relationships with people. So you really have to think about how you're going to create that relationship, and then it'll make a difference. So,
Fascinating.
one of my favorite social media platforms is one that most people don't talk about, and that's Pinterest.
Pinterest. Right.
Yeah,
Oh.
I love it. In fact, I teach a course on it, but
Oh.
I get anywhere from 1.3 to 2 million views a month on that platform,
Wow.
because
Wow.
I love working with it, and I fell in love with it as a platform. I find it far more effective and far more harmonious than Twitter,
Twitter.
or
Yeah.
or even Facebook in
Oh.
some
Yeah.
ways. Facebook can be very effective also, but
Yeah.
most of my traffic to my website comes from the search engines or from Pinterest.
Right. That's fascinating. So, like, yeah, like I'm glad you shared with us this Pinterest because, as you said, Twitter, Facebook, everybody kind of knows about it already, but Pinterest, not. I mean, people know it's there, but they don't know how effective, how powerful it is. So,
It is.
thanks
It
for
can be
sharing that.
very powerful if you know how to use it.
Ah,
You know,
yeah.
the thing is that the Pinterest users are doers. They're
Ah.
looking for things that will help them. So
Hmm.
if you're helpful, you're going to be fine. So I create what I call typographics, which are 5 or 10 tips in a tall, thin graphic.
Mm-hmm.
It fits well on Pinterest, and it showcases what you know. So you're providing tips just like I'm doing here, and people see that and they want to click through to your website to find out more.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very effective way to use Pinterest.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's another model on Pinterest, what I call headline graphics, where you say 5 simple ways to do something or something like that. But the thing is, you haven't proved it because you
Mm-hmm.
didn't list the 5 simple ways. You just did the headline. And in my experience, clicking through on those headline graphics often leads to a junk website.
I know. That's the scary part of the internet, right? Because
Yeah. So, but
yeah.
if you provide solid tips,
Mm-hmm.
it really makes a difference. And that's one of the key things I really talk to authors about. You
Yeah.
really have to provide useful information, both in your book, but also in anything you do online with blogging, anything like that, because that's what people are going to be. That's how you build the trust. And, in
Exactly.
internet marketing, they say, you're going to be effective if people come to know, love, and trust you.
That's very good advice. Like you don't want to bait and switch kind of things, right? Like
No,
they
no,
bait it's terrible, and makes you feel so terrible as a viewer, right? And then it feels like you've been scammed. You're kind of scared. Did you download some
yeah.
malware?
And the thing is,
Yeah.
you won't buy from them
Yeah,
again.
never. I'll just
And the
yeah.
thing is, it's the customer that you build that really
Mhm.
makes a difference, both in
Exactly.
internet marketing as well as in other marketing,
I
like
agree.
books. If somebody says, "Wow, that was a good read," does she have another book out?
Yeah.
Boom, it makes a difference. My wife fell in love with the Outlander series, uh,
Oh,
and
good.
historical romance, essentially. And
Yeah.
I just was able to tell her a week or two ago that the author finally got finished writing her next book in the series. My
Oh,
wife has been waiting for over a year and a half for it, or 2 years,
yeah.
and they've been hungrily waiting. And so the author, Diana Gabaldon, finally said, "I'm done with the book. It's in the hands of the publishers. Now it'll be still 4 months to 12 months before the book comes out."
Yeah. So that's one thing also, like you don't want to make your fans wait too long for your next book, right? That's
Right. But it
yeah,
happens. It
I know.
happens over and over again. The people, Game of Thrones author,
Oh yeah.
he's famous for taking a long time to write his books.
Yes. Yeah.
And, so people were waiting. So the series actually went ahead of him, basically,
Yeah.
because it was based on his novels. But finally they said, okay,
We got to do
we got
something.
to create new
So,
content. And they worked with him, obviously. But,
yeah.
he's still probably writing the books that will end the series, but the series already ended. So the
Ah.
books will eventually come out.
That yeah, that was I think that was a bit of a tragedy because the season finale or something was not as great as the previous ones, and yeah, the author couldn't. Maybe also the author. I know sometimes quality takes time, right?
It does.
So I kind of understand what the author is going through as well. But for somebody that's new starting out, should they focus more on quality or quantity to get their books rolling? What are your thoughts on that?
Personally, I would go for quality
Hmm.
because that's how you build up the fans. If you're just churning out book after book and they're terrible, you're not going to build fans no matter how many more books you churn out.
Yeah.
But if you can't create quality, then do quantity because you'll learn how to write
Yeah.
as you're writing the books.
Hmm.
And so, there's a lot of authors that wrote, 3 or 4 books before they finally hit it big,
Yeah.
but they had to learn how to write.
Of
And,
course.
you can go back to some of their old books, and you're going, okay, that didn't live up to what I expected, you know. So you have to grow,
Yeah.
and most authors do as they write book after book, they get better at it.
Of
If they
course. Yeah.
don't, they're never going to build an audience.
Right.
But if they start to get better at it, then it makes a difference.
100%. Like it's like any other skill, right? You have to learn kind of how to do it first, and you make a lot of mistakes, but then you learn from that, and of course, if you get,
But
yeah,
that's also why you have to read as well. You have to
yeah,
be a
oh,
reader to be a
100%.
good writer,
Yeah,
because you learn both ways, by reading and by writing, how to
yeah.
be a writer.
I 100% agree. Like that way you understand the formula that a successful writer might have. Just like
Right.
you learned from a different writer his basic formula, but then you were able to give it sort of like a unique twist to it.
Right.
So
And I made
yeah,
it my own, essentially. And
exactly.
it's amazing how many people would read my book and they say, I feel like I know you.
Wow, that's a
And
great
that's,
honor.
when you're writing a book like 1,001 Ways, which is a lot of facts but stories as well, it's not like you're expecting people to know you, but I think I have a good style, a friendly style. And
Hmm.
so even when writing, basically a prosaic how-to book,
Yeah.
it was still me in the book.
Oh,
And that's why people would feel like, oh, I know him.
Ah,
And so they felt like if they did meet me in person, they felt like they could come up and talk to me, which I'm glad, because the worst
yeah,
thing if I go out somewhere to speak
yeah.
and, after my speech, no one wants to talk to me, I feel bad.
Yeah,
Because part of the reason I'm there is to learn, to
yeah.
hear their stories and find out what they did that worked. I was speaking at one event a few years ago, and the guy told me about his business book. And what he did was create a book of the month club.
Hmm.
He wrote, I think, 9 or 10 books. They were small books, 120 to 160 pages.
Mm-hmm.
But what he did is when he got somebody's business card, he started sending them one book every month.
Hmm. Fascinating.
Especially for people that could book him for his consulting or speaking. And he called it his book of the month club.
Cool.
And when he sent it, the first book to the people, he said, I'm going to send you another one next month. So be sure you finish this one first.
Oh, I like that Book of the Month club. That's very clever. That way, the reader is like anticipating for the next.
Right. And
Yeah.
he didn't write him one book at a month. He
Oh,
had written it over a number of years,
of
but
course, of course.
he had written them. And then he created the Book of the Month Club. And it was really, much more effective than a direct sales letter, because they're
Yeah.
getting to know him, his thought, what he's capable of talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so he built up a lucrative practice, speaking and consulting with major corporations
Mm-hmm.
using that simple technique of a Book of the Month Club.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, John, we've talked a lot about all your experiences. Now, if you'd like to talk about the specific services that you offer, I know I read on your website about 747 book marketing takeoff program. So all those, would you like to list them out, like whatever that would help the authors?
Well, there's the
Yeah.
747 program is basically when your book is done.
Okay.
And then I teach you how to market it.
Mm-hmm.
I do, and I have worked with a number of authors who don't have, their book isn't finished yet. And the reality is, as you're writing the book, you should be marketing it.
Yes.
So there are a number of people that signed up early so that they could learn what are the steps I do now to start to build the audience, that when my book is done, I will have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
And so I teach people that. So the 747 program, I created it so that people would actually be encouraged to spend more time with me.
Mm.
I used to charge $600 an hour for consulting,
Mm-hmm.
and that's expensive. So people would take an hour with me, and then I'd never hear from them again.
Mm.
And I said, that doesn't, I want people to follow up with me. I want them to feel comfortable doing it. So
Mm.
I created a 747 program that gives them 2 months of me.
Mm.
So they can contact me through Zoom or something like that, through email, phone calls, whatever they're most comfortable with. And then I would help them, walk them through it. Next week, if I talk to them again, I would say, okay, did you do the things I asked you to do?
It's more helpful.
Because
Yeah.
again, the authors, they're so often more interested in marketing, writing their books
Of
than they
course. Of
are in
course.
marketing it.
Yeah.
But you have to market it in order to sell it,
I
so that
agree.
you can afford to write the next book, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. So I created the 747 program basically so I could spend more time with the authors. It's, I don't make as much money on it, literally, but I enjoy it more. I enjoy the process. Again, that's part of my helping focus. And,
Yes.
you can look at me now and you can say, okay, he's kind of an old fella. I'm 72 now, so I don't
Wow.
need a lot. I don't need as much money. I'm semi-retired. So I decided to make it myself available in that way. One of the other services I offer is to critique their title,
Hmm.
because the book title is so important. And I mean, I've seen so many bad titles that I decided, okay, I will offer that service so that people get a good title. I also do book cover critiques
Hmm.
to help them get the best book cover, because there are a lot of bad book covers out there.
Oh, I'd imagine. Like a lot of people
And,
want to do it themselves, right? And then,
yeah, and
yeah,
it's obvious that they did it themselves
yeah,
because it looks like, whatever.
yeah,
And, I've sat with major book wholesalers and buyers from major chains and media editors and producers on TV shows. And I've watched them pick up a book, and it's like they pick up a book, they look at the cover, and do they open it? It
yes.
all depends on how good the cover is, because the cover tells them, did the author
Oh,
write a good book?
mhm.
Is it worth it for me to even open the book? If the cover is bad, they're assuming that the interior is also bad. And that's
Yeah,
not always accurate, but it's, because they're getting anywhere from 20 to 100 books a day,
yeah,
and they're having to make a decision, they're making it really quickly.
of
They're
course.
looking at the cover and they're deciding, do I
Yeah,
move on with this book? Do I open it, or do I move on to the next book? Because the reality is they're only going to buy, a certain number of books if they're a wholesaler or a bookstore chain. And they're only going to book a certain number of authors to be interviewed on the TV or radio show.
yeah.
So they make their decisions really quickly because they got to get on to doing the rest of their
Oh,
job.
yeah. It's not easy for them on there. And so they have to make like a snap decision on the cover.
Right,
And I
right.
know the old saying is don't judge a book by its cover, but
It's
the reality,
absolutely done.
yeah,
All the way along the line as
yeah,
you're being curated, you could say, the decision maker for the distributor or the wholesaler,
yeah,
the decision maker for the bookstore chain or the independent bookstore, and on and on. The book cover. I mean, what do most people see when they go to Amazon?
yeah,
A
the book
book
cover,
cover.
of course. Yeah,
And if the cover doesn't interest in them, they're not going to click on to read more.
no, yeah,
And
yeah,
they're not going to sample it if
yeah,
it doesn't speak out to them, because a good book cover is sort of like a billboard. It has to attract your attention,
yeah,
and it also has to say to the person, I'm for you. You
yes.
know,
I
then the
agree.
title and the book cover has to say that
Yeah,
to them. So I've seen some, for example, romance novels,
yeah.
and the book covers don't say romance novel.
Oh,
I'm going, what is this? Is it a novel? Is it nonfiction? You don't know by the title. And
oh,
the book cover, if it's not designed right, doesn't say that. The best romance novels either have two things on it. One, a bare-chested man,
yeah. To get the woman excited.
yeah, or probably flowers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
something like that. It's got to look like it's a romance novel, or the
Yeah,
romance people won't pick it up because they're going, well, that's probably science fiction, and I don't like science fiction, or
yeah,
they
yeah,
don't know what it is. So and the worst book covers look like they were published by a university press.
yeah, yeah. That's
The reality is that university presses don't have to sell books
yeah,
to exist. They get supported by their university, and
yeah. That's for
they,
technical books more. Yeah,
yeah, and so
yes,
they don't have to look good. They don't have to be sold by what their cover looks like. But you get a business book out there, you better be clear that the book cover looks like a business book,
yeah.
but also says it to the potential audience, this book is one that you're going to value, that you're going to want to read.
I
And,
agree.
so the cover is important. And, as an author, I think, well, that's horrible because my words should be what counts.
I
But
know.
the reality is that the book cover is the first thing that people meet, and they have to know and trust that, what the book cover says
Yeah,
is right. And it's true to, it attracts them.
I agree. I totally agree. Like you could have the best book in the world, but if you're not willing to take the time to and effort to make a great book cover, all the content, like people will assume that the content, you didn't take enough time for the content as well. You know, it's
Right.
just, it's natural, right? Like as a human beings, if you're dressed like really well, if you're going out to dinner, if you're dressed really well, sometimes you get more respect. It's just you could be the worst person inside sometimes, but if you're dressed like really, really snappy, I find it's a sad reality. Maybe it's that way for a reason as well. So, but that's a good. I'm glad that you're helping authors with that cover, because sometimes I know they want to do it themselves, or they just give it to their friend who wants to do it. Uh, what would you recommend for somebody who's not like familiar on how to create a book cover? Would you ask them to hire a professional, or like
I would tell them to either hire a professional,
mhm.
because it's amazing what a good book cover designer can do.
Yes.
You know, I can recognize a good book cover, but I'm not good at designing book covers. You know, I'm not bad. I'm a lot better than, 90% of the people out there, but
Mhm.
I have, good friends who are book cover designers, and, I trust them because I know they'll make it extra special.
That's very
So
good.
even for my 1001 Ways to Market Your Books, I turn it over to a cover designer. What I usually do with a cover designer is I go and say, here are a couple of books that I really like the covers. I'd like my cover to look something like these.
Right.
And the neat thing is, a really good professional cover designer is going to cost you $3,000. So,
wow,
that's expensive, but it's the best money you could spend on marketing your book. But the neat thing is there are some incredible cover designers on Fiverr.
Yeah. I was about to mention that. That's
and the thing is that, you're not going to spend $5. It's going to cost you $50 or $100 or something like that.
Of course.
But the first thing you do is you ask for samples. The cover designer is going to showcase what he's done in the past, or she has done. And then you can go to them comfortably and say, but the neat thing is you're going to spend $50 or $100. And if it's not good enough, you can go back to them, or you can try multiple designers.
Yeah. I mean, you can take a bit more risks, especially if you're kind of on a tight budget. Maybe start with Fiverr, and then, of course, once you make a lot of sales, then you can go to like the very professional that charge like $3,000 or more for your cover. So you don't want to, like, maybe for the first book, I don't think people want to spend too much money.
No, you're probably not going to spend that much, but the neat thing is that with the internet, there are a lot of great cover designers. I mean, I've seen some great covers come out of Fiverr.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I've been very impressed with them. I'd say, wow, that's a great cover.
That's
there's also Upwork and a number of other websites that you can go to that you could find the right kind of cover designer for a relatively inexpensive price. And that's one of the wonderful things about the internet.
Okay. So, we covered the book cover itself. Now, what about inside of the book? Like, regardless of the content, there's a certain style, the typesetting, certain fonts you use for certain novels. For example, a romance novel might have a different kind of font than a business. Wouldn't you agree?
For the most part, yes, you would probably have a slightly different font. Although, Times New Roman or something similar is often used in books because it's a readable typeface.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so it can work for romance or business or self-help and so on. But there are, I love it when I come across a book that has a slightly different, Palladino or something like that has a nice look to it and feels more friendly than, say, Times New Roman or something like that.
I agree.
So it does help to think about that and decide what typeface you're going to use. And, I've seen quite a few self-published books actually use something like Verdana or Arial.
Oh, Arial's a good font too. It's easy to read.
But they're those are sans serif types, and serif types are a little bit easier to read over a long term.
Right.
But if you're picking up a book and reading, 2 or 3 pages,
Right.
the non-serif types work well as well. So it depends on the kind of book and what you're creating. Like 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books. It's a 700-page book, so it's not, it's not a casual read. But I designed it so that you could read for 5 minutes and stop and know where your next place is. You're not stopping in the middle of a paragraph. You're stopping at the end of a section.
You're
and
right.
I've designed very short sections for the most part,
that's
so that
clever.
you could read. And, that's part, you make those kinds of design decisions depending on the kind of book you're writing.
Yeah. You don't want to have too long chapters. You want to kind of like split your book up, especially if it's a long book. You want to kind of split it up as much as you can.
Right. And the thing is, you can't write like Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote, where, he would have paragraphs that would last 2 to 3 pages.
Old
you can't do that in today's world because people would look at it and think of it as being too intimidating, too gray.
True. Yeah.
So you have to break it up and have lots of good subheads and things like that, because in today's world, most people are reading 1 minute at a time or 5 minutes at a time while they're sitting, riding to work in the bus or, sitting in a waiting room somewhere or waiting for a meeting to start or, anything like that, or even reading while they're eating at lunch. All of those things are, short periods of time.
Yeah. And they have so many distractions. They might have their phone with them. So you don't want to, it's not like back in the day when they had, literally they only had books, right? Going back to the 1800s or something. So they had the time and the leisure to actually read all those long paragraphs. Whereas now, as you said, they kind of like have to dissect them a little bit more.
Right. In fact, if I were writing 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books today, I would have broken it down into 5 or 6 books.
Oh.
And I might still do that. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Interesting.
But, if you've written a 700-page book, you can easily break it up into pieces.
Yeah. And that may also help increase your sales in some way, too.
Right. In fact, with Amazon today, I mean, you can write a 30-page ebook and it's accepted on Amazon.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to get people into your full book that might be 160 pages.
Right.
So I actually tell people, as you're writing your book, why not upload a 30-page book sampler?
Right.
You don't have to call it a sample. You just give it a good title. You give it a good name. You give good content within those 30 pages. People will be eager and waiting for your full book to come up.
That's very good. That's very informative. And also you mentioned the indie bookstore campaigns. Do you want to elaborate on that one?
Okay. I do. Most authors don't know how to write a sales pitch to independent bookstores to get them interested in buying your book.
Right.
So I offer the service where I will write the copy for you based on what you provide me. And then I email it out to my list of 950 independent bookstores.
Fascinating.
So it's a good way to jumpstart it, get bookstores, knowing about your book and pitching it in a way that the bookstores would actually understand and be motivated to stock the book.
Oh, okay. And then they can buy it in bulk so that the author makes a bulk sale as well. Is that?
No, they're not going to buy. They're going to buy from a wholesaler.
Oh, wholesaler. Okay.
And they'll buy 1 or 2 copies to start off with. If you're a well-known author, they're going to buy 50 books.
Oh,
but if you're an unknown author, they're going to buy 1 or 2 books.
I'll just put it on the shelf,
copies.
At least.
Okay. Put it on the shelf and see how it is. If they read it, I mean, I know booksellers who hand sold 1,500 copies of a novel that they liked or a business book that they liked. So they do a lot of hand selling in a bookstore. So you want to create relationships with bookstores. And, if you're want to know if your book cover is good at all, take it into a bookstore and see if they'll buy it based on the cover alone.
Wow. That's a really good strategy.
Because if they do, that means the cover is good. If they don't, it means that you probably have to work on the cover some more.
It's like the acid test. It's like you know
Yes.
you know where you're at right away. Yeah.
Well, one of the nice things on the internet is that you can test book covers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Go on Facebook and ask your followers, which cover do you like best? But that's the wrong question to ask.
Oh.
You have to ask, which of these covers would you pick up first?
Mm-hmm.
You want them to do think of a physical action, like they were picking up the book in the bookstore, because that decision-making process is completely different from which cover do you like most.
Oh, yes. That's very true. That's a great, thank you again so much for sharing all your tips. And
Sure.
I like how you're very up to date. You're not like just relying on your old school knowledge. You're kind of like, learning as you're learning every day as well, because it keeps changing, the technology, like nowadays everything's kind of on your phone. People are not even using their desktop computers as much. So
Right. In fact,
yeah.
most social networks, 80% of the people accessing those social networks are doing it on their smartphones.
Yeah. So you have to like kind of make your book cover look good enough, that good in print, of course, and of course good enough on the phone. So it's kind of like it's got to look good when it's small as well,
Right.
And so
And it does. It
tricky.
absolutely has to stand out. It has to be readable when it's small, like on an Amazon page or on your
Yes.
iPhone or something like that. It really does make a difference in terms of the impression that it makes. So you have to make a really good readable cover. I've seen some horrible covers in the last couple of months, and I'm going, are they trying to sell the book?
Maybe some people do it as a hobby. They don't
In
really.
fact, I
Yeah.
can look at a book cover, say there's an author working with a major New York publisher. I can look at the book cover and tell you if it's an A, B, or C list title.
Oh,
An A list title is one that the publisher is going to spend money on.
yeah.
B list title, they'll spend money if the book starts to sell. A C list title, they're just throwing it out there.
Yeah. They're seeing what sticks.
And if it sticks, if it
Yeah.
works, then they'll spend money. But they're
Ah,
really, literally not putting any emphasis on it.
yeah.
There was a book. The title was totally wrong. Stephen King wrote about it in his column that he wrote at the time on Entertainment Weekly. And he
Mm.
said, this is an incredible book, but the title is all wrong. I'm surprised that they even sold any books.
Mm.
And it's really sad. And I found out later that the publishers, when they talked about the book, they called it the office novel. They didn't use the title of the book. They,
Oh,
because they knew it wasn't right. But, subconsciously they knew that was a horrible title. And, the book, I'm sure, would have sold a lot better if it had a title and the publisher had taken the time to come up with a title rather than using the placeholder, the office novel.
I mean, I would think that's based on The Office, the show or something, like it's very
Yeah.
misleading. It's confusing, but I'm glad that at least Stephen King found it. I don't know how he found the book, but
Well, I'm sure
yeah.
it was sent to him to be, to
All
review it.
reviewed. Right. Right.
And, I'm sure he started reading it and it was so good that, he finished it and he said it was a wonderful book.
Wow.
And that's part of what, goes into it, the whole thinking of how do you, create a good book
Yeah.
before you start to market it.
Yeah. And once you say you wrote a title and you published it already, you can always change the title, right? Like if you want to update the title or the cover. I mean, that's
You
no.
can always change the title
Okay.
with print on demand. You can, if you bought
Yeah.
10,000 copies,
You can't.
you
Yeah.
gotta wait. I mean, I did a book once, a
Oh.
horrible title.
Oh.
It was back in my early days, and it was just a terrible title. It was called something like Form Aids for Direct Response Marketing.
Hmm.
But who knew what Form Aids meant, and all that. It was a terrible title.
It's too technical. Yeah.
Yeah, and so finally it was called the Complete Direct Marketing Source Book.
Yeah.
Much,
Something.
much better title
Yeah.
and much more speaking to them. But the first one I probably bought 10,000 copies or
Wow.
5,000. So I had to wait for them to sell out before I could do the next edition. Because, when you're a self-publisher, you don't leave unsold books.
Yeah.
You sell them before you move on to reprint or something like that. But with print on demand, you don't
Yeah.
have to do that. You
Yeah.
can change the book title, the cover anytime you want.
Right.
You have to pay an extra $25 or something, but
Yeah.
that's minor compared to what you used to have to spend if you're going to redo the book.
I totally that I guess that's a bit of a convenience we have now with the sell on demand. So there's no more excuses.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
actually, there isn't. The wonderful thing is that you can test market your book
Yeah.
even before you publish it
Right.
by, sending it out there and giving people the opportunity to buy whatever you have. And if you want to test your book titles, a really good way to do that is to offer a free report
Mm-hmm.
uh, with 3 different titles. You say you can only get one of these 3 free reports. Which one do you want? Now, they're all the same report. It's just got different titles.
Right.
So it's an incredible, really good way to know which titles people would actually choose.
Right.
And so it's a wonderful way to test the titles. You force them to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
And once they make the decision, you'll know pretty clearly which one's going to work. I did that with a book cover for one of my editions of 1001 Ways. And 80% of the people wanted the book cover that I didn't like.
But you're honest.
I like the other cover better. But when I published the book,
yeah.
I did the cover that they had chosen.
Oh.
If it had been 50-50, I would have gone with my instinct.
Yeah.
But it was 80-20, and that's too much difference.
Oh, sometimes they hold on to their favorites too. Like a author might feel very sentimentally attached to a certain cover, and you kind of have to I understand your role is kind of to balance, get them to like it, but also it's marketable as well. So I find that fine balance, I guess.
Yeah. So, but I trust my audience. So
okay,
when they did 80-20, that was the cover, whether I liked it or not.
Oh, the audience taste also changes sometimes. It's
it obviously does, and
right.
My latest cover, I think I don't know if I can. Oh, it's underneath the stack of books, so I can't.
You have a lot of books there.
I can't get it to it, but it's a wonder. I like it. I like the cover now that I have.
Okay.
I think it's dynamic and interesting, and I actually did something interesting as an experiment. I did holograms. That I stuck to the cover, so it said, "Sell more books, buy this book." So it flashed
very
between
catchy.
the two.
Very catchy.
So it flashed between the two. So I saved those only for retail.
Oh.
To put into bookstores. Yeah. If I was just selling it direct, that sticker didn't go on.
Oh, fascinating. Well, John Kremer.
But that was expensive, So,
oh yeah, holograms to print it, right? You have to it's more costly. Yeah. Yeah.
I just probably gone over time, haven't we?
No. I mean, this conversation is very fascinating, but of course, I think you've covered a lot of ground here.
John, do you have a book?
Yes, I do actually. I do have I'm like a comic book guy. I just have I've just released this recently. It's called Cold Cat Comics. Oh, can you see it? Oh, sorry.
Yes, I can.
Okay. It's just a comic, I'm just starting out myself. So it's basically features a cat that's a bit mischievous. It's kind of like a cross between Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield, or Heathcliff kind of thing. I also have a Facebook page.
Did you illustrate it then as well?
Oh yes, I illustrated all of it, and I'm working with my publisher who guides me as well. But and also I have a Facebook page where there's a lot of people there that follow the comics, so they're kind of into it already. But I am definitely looking to release another one. So maybe if I can, I'll get your advice. And
sure.
Do you have any experience with comic books in general, or is it the same as regular books?
Just one comic book that I worked with, and also I think I worked with one graphic novel, which is sort of like a comic book but bigger.
Okay. So that's a bit of a different industry, I guess, from regular books, written books, or is it the same?
Both comic books and graphic novels are different.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They tend to be sold through comic book stores.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I imagine.
Much more so than bookstores, and so it's a different audience,
It's a different audience, right?
But it's a great audience. I mean, comic
Yeah,
book. The people that love comic books buy a lot of them.
yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, especially the Marvel comics, those superhero kind of things.
Right,
They
but
yeah.
I mean, even Archie made a comeback. So
Archie, oh yeah, I grew up with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can have a variety of ones. I've been thinking about one. I wrote a book about basically a serial killer.
Oh wow.
But it's only like 2 pages long, so it
Oh.
has to be a comic book or a graphic novel because I wrote 2 pages and I was done with the story, you
Yeah.
know. But it would make a great comic book.
Oh, well,
Um,
definitely.
but I'm not an illustrator, so I've been thinking about putting it up on Fiverr or Upwork and finding some illustrator,
Wow.
or maybe even going to DeviantArt, which is a community of artists.
Yeah, that's a great place to find them. And good luck. Is that going to be your first graphic novel, or?
It would be if I
Yeah,
ever get to it,
I think you should go for it. Good
but
experience. Yeah.
I love. I think I wrote it well,
Okay.
you know. But it's an interesting, but it's a little story, but if the first story, if the first episode got sold, then I'd write more. I'd have to
Oh.
get into the mind of the serial killer, which I'm
Uh-huh.
not sure I want to do.
But they sell well though. Those kind of novel, like graphic
Yeah,
novels. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if it sold well, I'd have to write more of them.
Okay. Well, good luck on that, and I hope to hear updates on
And of
that book
course, if
soon.
something like that, I would want, I would love to see it then made into a movie
Yeah. Yeah.
or a TV series.
Like
Um,
like the movie the 300, I think, was based on a graphic novel.
it
Or
was,
yeah, so there's a market for it for sure.
and it was, and even the movie
Yeah.
tried to look and feel like
Yeah, it's like the
the
storyboard.
comic book. Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
and the really neat thing for that is that the rights for that, with all these streaming services, there are more and more movies being made that would not have been made
Yeah.
back when you only had 10 movies released a month or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Now
and
it's
and
much
so
more.
even your graphic novel could end up, or comic book could end up being a movie at some point, or a
That's great.
children's TV show, or whatever it is. I haven't read your book, so I don't know who the
Oh,
audience is yet, because I just read the other day about comic books for adults.
yeah. Yeah. It's becoming
And
making a comeback.
right, and they're actually making oh, I read it in Hollywood Reporter because it was about TV shows where it's now uh, you know uh, uh, comedy, like The Simpsons, but it's
Yeah.
made for adults only. It's not
Oh yeah.
made for kids.
Oh yeah. Like Family Guy. I mean, like even Family Guy could potentially release a comic book. I don't know if they have, but
Yeah,
it goes hand in hand. Cartoons.
but they're doing more of those kinds of cartoon shows for
Uh,
adults only.
yeah, yeah. I've seen a number of them appear on Netflix. It's kind of jarring sometimes because it's you still kind of they look cute, but then there's all these obscene things going on. Like even Family Guy looks so colorful and bright, but then it's so like disturbing even sometimes, even for adults sometimes.
Right.
So I understand.
One
Yeah.
of the interesting things that's happened
Mhm.
over the last 10 years is the growth of the erotic novel industry,
Oh yeah, right.
because people didn't feel comfortable. You're reading a book and you got the book cover and you got the erotic picture on there. Well, if you're on a bus or a train reading that, you're going to be shy about reading the book. So you put a
Yeah,
cover over it or something like that.
yeah,
But on the iPhone reading it,
yeah,
nobody sees the cover.
yeah. That's
So you can read the erotic novel if that's what you're interested in. And
yeah,
there's
big market.
it's become a big industry within the publishing industry. And it's mainly driven by smaller publishers and self-publishers.
Yeah,
because the big
yeah.
publishers aren't quite sure if they want to get
No,
into
of
that.
course, probably not. Probably not, because it's like
It's
adult
sort of
movies.
like the movie makers,
Yeah.
not wanting to do the the old smut movies or whatever.
I totally understand. There's going to be producers for all types of content, and definitely
Yeah.
fetishes are becoming more and more popularized now. So there's a different niche. That's I mean, if you want to go down that road, I mean, it's there's definitely a market for almost anything. So
Yeah, I have one client that started with erotic novels,
hmm.
and now she's going into clean romance.
Oh, that's smart. You make your money there, and then you sort of move on up.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and she
Yeah.
feels much more comfortable in the clean romance.
Oh,
It's much more suitable for her,
yeah.
how she feels about the thing. But she wrote the novels, the
Yeah.
erotic novels.
I mean, there's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean,
No, I
you're a
think
kid. Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
there's all, the neat thing is that you can really now in today's world address any audience that would be out there.
That's good.
I mean, there was a time when you couldn't publish a gay novel
Oh, yes. I
or a gay
imagine.
romance, and a lot of that first started off as being self-published or small
Right.
publishers creating those novels.
Mm.
And now it's, big publishers are doing it. They finally realized that it was okay to do it, but
Exactly.
there was a time when it wasn't,
Right.
and there's all kinds of niche markets like that where it does make a difference that you're able to reach out to the market that you want to reach out to and write the kind of book you want to write.
I agree. And one of the advantages of these erotica novels, I mean, you can kind of get away with amateur writing. Like, I mean, if you're really, really starting out, they're more forgiving. Let's just say, if just as the adult movies, I mean, they don't mind if the lighting is not perfect or the camera quality is not the best. They're more, so you can kind of like sell at the same time. You don't have to spend too much money. I mean, initially.
Yeah.
So
Well,
interesting. But that's a whole other topic.
One time I lived in a small town in Iowa.
Yeah.
And the library had, I don't know, about 5 or 10 of this sort of erotic Westerns.
Oh.
It wasn't really that erotic, but every 25 pages in the Western, it was a normal Western, except every 25 pages there had to be an erotic sex scene.
Yeah. It's like Hollywood movies, like Michael Bay movies.
And so you knew that if you were on page, 45, that there was another scene coming up,
It sells. It's all I can say.
And it was the old sex scenes, wham, bang, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wouldn't work for women. The sex scenes were for men who read Western novels. But, it works,
Wow.
And just one other side I'll tell you.
Sure.
I used to read the Louis L'Amour novels, and I realized towards the end of his life, he wasn't being edited.
Oh.
His novels got worse.
Okay.
They weren't as well written. The stories sort of wandered around. And I realized that when he first started out, there was a good editor behind him.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, they said, well, he's too good a seller. We don't need to edit him.
But big mistake.
It is a big mistake. They should have edited him because it made a difference. It was disappointing when you read some of his later novels because they weren't as good, and they were harder to follow.
I think behind every great author is a great editor. I mean, it's like the movies, right? A lot of movies and books, same thing, like if they filmed everything and they didn't edit anything, like you wouldn't be able to follow it, right? Or it'd be kind of confusing.
I can usually tell with movies, was there a good director behind it?
Oh, yes.
Because a good director pulls out of the actor, I saw some famous actors in some movies, and you could see that they were basically just doing their paces. They were walking through the movie.
Yeah, just collecting a paycheck. That's it.
Yeah, and you could tell it because it wasn't as good. But a good director would have pulled it out of them.
Oh, yeah. I agree. So it kind of like the content has to be good, the author has to be good, and also the editor is the one that's pulling out. He's kind of like the director in some ways of the book.
And so you help to shape it and make it a better book.
Yeah.
And I mean, some editors can be heavy-handed. I had an editor at a magazine edit my book and take out all the, magazine article and take out all my personality. I mean,
that's
all
not
of
good.
it.
That's not good. That's not good.
That didn't work. But,
Yeah.
I think you do need an editor. I don't think you can necessarily edit yourself.
Yeah.
You definitely cannot proofread yourself.
Yeah, takes time, proofreading. And
well, the first edition of my book, 101 Ways to Market Your Books, I discovered the same error 10 times in the book, and I missed it because I had written the book, so I didn't connect the error. But I would start writing the book saying, there is something or other, and then I would list 10 things. So it should have been, there are, But my initial thought when I was writing it was that I was going to say, 1 point, and then I made 10 points, and it should have, but I made that mistake 10 times in the book.
Wow.
So one of the first things I do now, whenever I edit a book, is I do a search and replace on, a find to find all that there is to make sure they match up.
Yeah. And like, speaking of this, when you're creating it, you might not see the mistake, but so you need like a fresh pair of eyes. So you can even tell maybe your friend to proofread it. I mean, is that okay? Or do you need like a professional proofreader?
You should really have a professional proofreader, because even the friend will miss things. So you should really, proofreaders are relatively inexpensive compared to editors or cover designers. Right. So it's worth spending the money if you feel that at all that you have blind spots.
Yeah, and again, like Fiverr, I'm sure has people that will do that for you. So there's no excuse anymore.
Right.
That's very good. Anyway, John, thank you so much for joining us today, John Kremer. It's really been an honor. And somebody with so much experience in the industry, I'm learning as I just talking to you, I'm learning so many new things. And like, especially with the different types of books that are selling now, there's, not just the ebooks, there's the audiobooks, and then of course there's the print, but print is still king. So that's good. So invest in all of them if you can, right?
Right.
Awesome. So anything else you want to tell our viewers, John, before we wrap this up?
Well, the key piece of advice is do 5 things a day, ideally, for any book that you love that you're doing. And, the best thing you can do is find somebody that loves your book so much that they want to advocate for it.
That's very, very good advice.
And that can make a lot of difference. And, that's basically putting yourself out there to discover those people that will talk about your book to other people.
That's very good. And of course, people can visit bookmarketingbestsellers.com for more information about John Kremer. And Mr. Kremer, is there any way people can reach you? Is there any email that you'd like to leave with us, or any contact information?
My main one would be John Kremer at bookmarket.com.
Okay, perfect.
And Kremer is spelled Kremer.
Yes, that's good.
Whoops.
Oh, the phone going off. I guess that's your timer.
I forgot to unplug it.
Oh, no, it's all good. We're about to wrap up here anyway. So also, you do have an email subscription at they can sign up for at bookmarketingbestsellers.com.
Yes.
And
it's on every page, so they can't miss it.
That's good. That's very good marketing. And what do you get? Do you get something every week or every month, or is it like they get updates?
Yes, I try to do it weekly.
Oh, weekly. Okay. And
people forget you if you don't do it at least weekly.
Oh, okay.
If you do it monthly, they've forgotten all about you.
Oh, yeah. Weekly is more reminding them to your. And of course, what one book would you recommend our viewers to get if they want to get one book from you? What would you recommend?
Well, the 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books. It's the main one for marketing books. I do have some other ones, but that's the main one.
Okay.
And you'll be well serviced with that.
Okay, and I'm sure they can get it on your website, right? Bookmarketingbestsellers.com.
On my website or on Amazon, either place.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you once again, Mr. Kremer, for joining us today. And
Yes, thank you.
we wish you all the best on your upcoming graphic novel. It's going to be your first project. I'm quite interested in seeing, because you've done so many, regular books. This is going to be definitely a interesting experience, and hope you can share that with me and our viewers once it's finished. And of course, we'll see if it can be adapted into a movie so people can watch it soon on Netflix or all the services. Awesome.
That would be fun.
That's like a dream come true.
Well, for many authors, that's a dream come true.
Yes.
And it's amazing how many books are out there that would make great movies that have not been made into movies yet.
Right. Well, it's a big industry, right? A lot of budget, but
well, and it's because of the streaming services, there's going to be a lot more opportunity for people to get their book made into a movie or a TV series, because even nonfiction could be made into a TV series.
Oh yeah, documentaries. Oh yeah, there's a big market for that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see, someday maybe doing 1,001 Ways to Market Your Books as a series.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's enough there for 10 years,
Or you can even do it now, like with YouTube, right? Like just
I could, and
it's an idea.
To start off with. And the neat thing is there's a lot of people that were discovered on YouTube and became a TV series or a movie based on what they were creating on YouTube.
Yeah. So there's no more excuses for people. Like if you have an idea, get it out there.
It's absolutely true. And there are people. I mean, I just heard about a couple British girls on TikTok.
Oh.
And they do TikTok videos about books that make them cry.
You never thought that. That's interesting.
And the authors that were featured saw much greater sales. So their TikTok series is creating a platform for them. So when they're ready to write a book to make other people cry, they'll have a built-in audience for it.
So there's no platform that all platforms are open at the moment, even TikTok.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, this is Santosh Christidas signing off for the Toronto Business Journal, and we're very thankful to have John Kremer with us today. And be sure to visit his website at bookmarketingbestsellers.com. And of course, to our viewers, get going on your idea and get it out there. And if you need any help, be sure to contact John Kremer. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope you all have a wonderful day out there. All right? Take care.
Thank you, everybody.